The desert sun burned hot against the golden horizon, casting long shadows over the shifting sands. At its center stood the Great Pyramid of Khufu, a monument so vast and silent it seemed almost alive. For centuries, travelers had gazed at its perfect geometry and wondered what secrets lay hidden within its limestone walls. But few understood the immense human struggle that had given birth to it, the sweat of thousands of workers, the orders of kings, and the whispers of priests who claimed that the gods themselves demanded such structures be built. This was Egypt in the age of the Old Kingdom, more than 4,000 years ago. A land where the Nile flooded with clockwork rhythm, where kings were gods in the eyes of their people, and where every stone laid carried the weight of eternity. The story begins with Neferu, a young scribe chosen to work under the chief architect of Pharaoh Khufu. Unlike most men, Neferu could read the sacred hieroglyphs, and his sharp memory made him invaluable in recording the pharaoh's decrees. Neferu had grown up in a small village along the Nile. His father had been a stonecutter, killed when a block slipped during construction. His mother had always feared that Neferu, too, would be drawn into the great works of the pharaoh. Yet fate had pulled him closer than she ever imagined, not as a laborer in the blazing sun, but as a witness inside the pyramid itself. From the first time he stepped into the dark, unfinished corridors, Neferu felt the air change. It was heavy, damp, and filled with the smell of limestone dust. Every torch flickered strangely, as though the pyramid resisted their presence. Still, his duty was to record. In those days, whispers spread among the workers. They said the pharaoh's tomb was not merely a resting place but a passageway. That beneath the polished stones lay chambers untouched by human eyes, chambers meant to guard secrets too dangerous for mortals. Neferu dismissed such rumors. He believed in the order of Ma'at, the truth, balance, and justice that guided Egypt. Yet one evening, after the day's work ended, he overheard the chief architect arguing with the workers strained as they pressed their hands against the lid of the massive stone box. The chamber echoed with groans of stone against stone. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the weight shifted, each heartbeat stretching into eternity. Neferu's breath caught. His hand trembled so violently he nearly dropped his papyrus. The pharaoh's face remained carved in stern resolve, but even he leaned forward as the lid began to slide. The high priest screamed, his voice shattering the silence. "Stop! You will doom us all. Close it before the gods strike us down." But Khufu's command rang out like iron. "Open it." With a final grinding sound, the lid shifted enough for the torchlight to spill inside. The chamber filled with an oppressive stillness. All eyes peered into the darkness of the stone box. What they saw was not gold, nor treasure, nor jewels meant for a king. Instead, the box revealed scrolls. Dozens of them, stacked carefully in bundles, their papyrus older than any Neferu had ever seen. They were brittle, darkened with age, yet still intact. Alongside them lay slabs of smooth black stone, etched with the same alien markings as the hidden chamber walls. Whispers broke out among the guards. "This is not treasure." Khufu stepped closer, his torchlight reflecting in his sharp eyes. He reached inside with both hands, lifting one of the black slabs. Its surface shimmered faintly, as though tiny stars were trapped within it. "What hand carved this?" the pharaoh asked. His voice was not angered, but awed. "These symbols are not of our people. Yet they endure." The priest staggered backward. "It is forbidden knowledge. Seal it now." But Khufu ignored him. He turned to Neferu. "Read." Neferu's stomach knotted. His mind raced. He leaned closer to the slab, tracing the strange grooves with his finger. They felt too precise, too perfect, as though made by a tool no Egyptian craftsman could wield. He could not understand them fully, yet patterns leapt out, constellations, rivers, the outline of a man standing beneath the sun. "It is a record," Neferu whispered. "But not in our tongue. I think it speaks of the heavens." The architect's eyes widened. "A map?" "Yes," Neferu said, voice breaking. "A map of the stars." For days after, Neferu was commanded to study the scrolls and slabs. Guards stood watch as he bent over dim torchlight, unrolling fragile papyrus and copying every mark he could decipher. The pharaoh came often, his gaze sharp, impatient for answers. The priest refused to enter again. He called the chamber cursed, a place where men trespassed upon the will of the gods. Still, his warnings spread through the workers' camp. Rumors took root that Khufu had uncovered writings from a civilization older than Egypt itself, and that the land's misfortunes were punishment for disturbing it. The Nile floods had grown worse. Entire farms lay underwater. Hungry families gathered near the pyramid site, demanding that the pharaoh end his defiance. "Seal the chamber," they shouted. "Let the dead rest." Khufu silenced them with soldiers, but Neferu could feel the growing unease. Even the workers seemed haunted, their hammer strikes weaker, their voices quieter. One night, after hours of copying, Neferu's eyes burned. He pressed his palm against his temple, staring at a particular scroll. Unlike the others, this one bore not only symbols but drawings, geometric patterns, with precise measurements. They reminded him of the angles of the pyramid itself. The architect joined him, bending over the parchment. "These are not words," he said softly. "These are designs. Plans." Neferu swallowed hard. "For what?" The architect's voice dropped lower, almost reverent. "Not for a tomb. For something else. Something that uses the pyramid itself." Neferu's heart raced. He realized with sudden clarity, the pyramid might not only be a tomb. It might be part of a larger system, an instrument, a machine. Meanwhile, Khufu grew restless. He demanded progress. "I will not leave this world ignorant of what these writings conceal. If the gods have hidden it, then it is meant for kings to uncover. My Ka will not wander blind into the afterlife." The priest confronted him in front of the council. "My pharaoh, this path invites ruin. The floods worsen, the people starve, and yet you chase shadows in the dark. Have you forgotten your duty?" Khufu's gaze turned cold. "My duty is to eternity. A king who fears knowledge is no king at all." The court fell silent. The tension between priest and pharaoh deepened, and Neferu knew it could only end in tragedy. But Neferu himself was not free of doubt. At night, when he returned to his tent, he often dreamt of the symbols. He saw them glowing across the night sky, shifting, rearranging. Sometimes he heard whispers, faint as the wind, urging him deeper into the pyramid. His mother noticed the change in him. "Your eyes are not your own," she said one morning, her voice breaking. "The gods take men who chase forbidden things. Leave this, Neferu. Let the pharaoh carry his burden. Do not carry it for him." Neferu clasped her hands, but he could not promise her escape. Duty bound him tighter than love. Then came the day Khufu commanded the box itself be moved. The stone was too heavy for men alone, yet somehow, with ropes and sleds, the workers inched it toward a newly carved chamber deep within the pyramid. Neferu walked beside it, torch in hand, watching every shadow stretch along the limestone walls. He noticed something unsettling. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. Not with heat from the torches, but as if the stones themselves radiated warmth. The workers muttered nervously, but Khufu ordered them forward. When the box was finally placed, Neferu studied its new position. It aligned with shafts carved upward, angled perfectly toward the stars. It was no accident. Whoever designed this chamber had intended it to be part of a celestial order. The architect leaned close, whispering, "Do you see it now? This pyramid is not a tomb, it is a key." Neferu shuddered. A key to what, he did not know. But the thought chilled him more than any tomb could. That night, the priest confronted Neferu in secret. His face was gaunt, eyes blazing. "You write for the pharaoh, but do you write for Egypt? This knowledge is poison. Already the land suffers. Do not be blind." Neferu stammered, "What can I do?" "He commands, and I obey." The priest seized his wrist. "You can choose. You can burn the scrolls. You can destroy the slabs. Spare Egypt before the curse takes us all. Neferu tore his hand away, shaken. He wanted to dismiss the priest's words, but deep inside, fear clawed at him. What if he was right? The days passed, each one heavier than the last. The pyramid neared completion, yet the atmosphere grew darker. Soldiers patrolled constantly to prevent rebellion. The people whispered of famine and divine wrath. The workers avoided Neferu, as though he carried death in his shadow. And Neferu himself began to wonder if the symbols truly belonged to gods, or to men who had lived long before Egypt, men whose knowledge had been buried for reasons no one alive could understand. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Neferu sat on a stone block, papyrus across his knees. He stared at the drawings of the pyramid's hidden chambers, the angles, the shafts pointing to stars. He felt as though the stones themselves leaned closer, waiting for him to speak. It struck him then, the pyramid was speaking in silence. Not of death, but of power. Power that kings and priests alike could never control. And with that realization came a new fear. If Khufu understood it fully, if he unlocked it, Egypt itself might change forever. The box still sat in its chamber, sealed but waiting. The scrolls lay stacked in guarded rooms, their ink fading with age yet still pulsing with mystery. Khufu grew hungrier for answers. The priest grew more desperate. And Neferu found himself standing between them, between the thirst of a king and the dread of a people. The desert wind howled outside, rattling tents, carrying with it the cries of the hungry. Inside the pyramid, torches flickered, their light dancing across walls carved by hands long gone. The chamber breathed, silent yet alive. And Neferu knew, whatever truth the pyramid held had not yet been revealed. The box had only been opened, not understood. The real secret, the one that had waited thousands of years, still slept beneath the stones. Waiting for the moment when man's courage, or his arrogance, would awaken it. The desert nights had grown colder, and yet inside the half-finished pyramid, the air remained heavy, thick, and strangely warm. The massive stone box rested in its new chamber, silent and immovable, like a slumbering beast waiting to be stirred. Neferu spent his days and nights surrounded by the scrolls, his fingers stained with ink, his mind consumed by signs he barely understood. Every hour brought more pressure. The pharaoh demanded answers, the high priest demanded silence, and the architect demanded proof that the structure itself was more than a tomb. Neferu stood in the middle of their hunger and fear, a vessel carrying truths that even he could not yet see clearly. Khufu visited often. He would stand tall in the torchlight, his expression unreadable as he studied the black slabs. Sometimes he would rest his hand upon them, as if testing their power with his own flesh. "Tell me, scribe," the pharaoh said one evening, his deep voice echoing across the stone walls, "if these writings speak of the stars, then what do they say of me? Does eternity await me beyond them, or am I merely a man building his own tomb?" Neferu lowered his gaze, fearful of answering wrong. "My lord, the signs speak of patterns, movements of the heavens, alignments with the earth. They do not name kings, but they show power. Great power." Khufu's lips tightened, neither smiling nor frowning. "Then I will master it. If the gods left these secrets, they left them for a king. And I am no lesser man than the gods would choose." The priest, standing in the shadows, broke his silence. "Or perhaps they left them as a warning, my pharaoh. A snare for mortals who dare to reach too high." Khufu turned on him, his eyes flashing. "Enough. Your prayers will not feed the hungry, nor will your fear carve eternity into stone. Leave me." The priest bowed stiffly and withdrew, his footsteps heavy, his muttered curses trailing behind him. Neferu's chest tightened. He knew this rift between king and priest was tearing wider each day, and when it broke, Egypt itself might split with it. The famine worsened. Villages that once thrived along the Nile now sent desperate families into the city gates, begging for food. Many believed the gods were punishing Egypt. Rebellion brewed in whispers. One afternoon, Neferu walked through the workers' camp. He heard their murmurs. "The scribe serves a cursed pharaoh. He writes the language of demons. It is his hand that brings this suffering." Eyes followed him as he passed, filled with suspicion and fear. Neferu pulled his cloak tighter around him, longing for his mother's voice to anchor him. But even she had grown distant, watching him as though he had already crossed into another world. Still, Neferu could not let go of the symbols. The scrolls revealed more with each passing night. One set of drawings described the pyramid's shafts, angled precisely toward certain stars. Another showed flowing lines, as though energy coursed through the stones themselves. The architect leaned over his shoulder one evening. "Do you see? The pyramid is not only a monument, it is built to catch the heavens. To pull down their strength." Neferu whispered, "But why? For a king's soul?" The architect's eyes gleamed. "For more than a soul. For dominion. To bind eternity to this earth." His words sent a shiver through Neferu. He began to wonder whether the pharaohs sought not passage into the afterlife, but a way to wield eternity while still alive. The tension erupted weeks later. In the courtyard of the pyramid site, under a searing sun, the priest gathered workers and common folk who had grown restless. He raised his arms and cried out, "The gods weep for Egypt. They drown our fields and starve our children because Khufu dares to unseal what should never be touched. Look upon him, not as a god, but as a man who tempts disaster." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others fearful. Soldiers moved in, hands on their spears. Khufu himself emerged from the shadows of the pyramid, his presence striking silence into the air. He raised his staff high. "Do not be deceived. This is not punishment, it is trial. The gods test our strength, and only those who endure will share in their secrets. Egypt will not starve. Egypt will triumph." The crowd wavered, torn between faith and fear. Neferu watched, heart hammering, knowing that the line between rebellion and obedience had never been thinner. That night, Khufu summoned Neferu to his private tent. The pharaoh's face was weary but his eyes burned with a fire that no famine could quench. "You have studied long enough," Khufu said. "Tomorrow, we test what the writings reveal." Neferu froze. "Test, my lord?" Khufu leaned closer. "The box will be opened fully. The scrolls will be placed as they were meant to be. The shafts align with the stars tomorrow night. I will not waste the moment. You will guide me." Neferu's throat closed. "I am no priest, my pharaoh. I am only a scribe." Khufu's hand gripped his shoulder, heavy and unyielding. "A scribe who has seen more than any man alive. You will not fail me." The following day passed in dreadful silence. Workers carried torches, stones, ropes, and offerings into the pyramid's hidden chamber. Soldiers stood guard at every entrance, their faces grim. The priest was nowhere to be seen, though Neferu knew he lingered in the shadows, praying for divine wrath. As the sun set, the air grew colder. The stars pierced the desert sky, clear and sharp. Neferu's hands trembled as he carried the fragile scrolls into the chamber, laying them upon the floor as the drawings indicated. The architect directed the workers to adjust the slabs. The massive stone box was placed precisely beneath the shafts, aligned with the stars above. The chamber itself seemed to hum, though no sound echoed from the workers' mouths. Khufu entered, adorned in gold and white linen, his crown gleaming. His presence filled the space with a gravity greater than the stone itself. "This night," he declared, "we call eternity to witness Egypt's glory." Neferu's pulse thundered in his ears as the ceremony began. The architect instructed the workers to light torches in each corner, their flames casting long shadows. Khufu stepped before the box, lifting his staff toward the shafts that cut upward into the heavens. "Osiris, Ra, all who dwell beyond," the pharaoh intoned, "see your servant, your son, who dares not cower but seeks to know. Grant me sight, grant me power, grant Egypt dominion everlasting." The torches flickered violently. A gust of air rushed through the chamber, though no wind should have reached this depth. The scrolls on the floor trembled, their edges curling. Neferu's breath hitched. He felt it again, that strange warmth radiating from the stones. But stronger now. Alive. The workers muttered nervously, crossing themselves with protective gestures. The architect's eyes gleamed with fevered excitement. Khufu stood tall, his voice unshaken. "Bring forth the slab," the pharaoh commanded. Neferu stepped forward reluctantly, lifting the smallest of the black stones. Its weight was unnatural, heavy, yet balanced, as if the stone itself resisted being carried. He set it upon the box as Khufu directed. The chamber groaned. A low vibration rolled through the floor, through the walls, through Neferu's bones. The torches flared high, their flames bending toward the shaft. Khufu raised his arms. "Behold! The gods answer." But in that instant, the priest burst into the chamber, his face pale with fury. "Stop this madness. You twist the heavens against us. Close it, before Egypt falls." Khufu turned, eyes blazing with wrath. "Silence him." Soldiers seized the priest, but his cries echoed louder than the chamber's hum. "You summon not gods but curses. You will drag us all into the abyss." Neferu clutched his papyrus to his chest, his soul torn. He could feel the power rising, undeniable, flowing through the stones. Yet he also felt the terror in the priest's words. This was no ordinary ritual. This was a threshold, and once crossed, there would be no return. The chamber shook again, dust raining down from above. The slabs shimmered faintly, their symbols glowing as if lit from within. Khufu stepped onto the platform beside the box, his voice booming. "Tonight, Egypt claims the stars." Neferu's knees weakened. The workers fell back, fear plain in their eyes. The architect urged them forward, but none dared. The priest struggled in the soldier's grip, still shouting warnings. And Neferu, trapped in the heart of it all, realized the truth: the climax had begun. The pyramid was awakening, its purpose no longer buried in silence. The desert outside lay quiet under the stars, but within the stone heart of Egypt, something stirred, a power neither wholly divine nor wholly human, but older than either. And as the chamber trembled, Neferu understood with dreadful certainty: what had been unlocked could never again be buried. The chamber trembled faintly, though no wind stirred the torches. The flickering flames revealed glints of moisture on the walls, as if the stone itself were sweating. A low hum pressed against the ears of everyone present, steady and unnerving, like the beating of a colossal heart buried deep beneath the pyramid. Pharaoh Khufu stood tall, his face unreadable. The golden crook in his hand gleamed under the shifting light, a reminder of his divine authority. Yet, Neferu, watching from a step behind, saw something else in the pharaoh's eyes, an unease he had never before witnessed in a king who claimed to be the son of the gods. The high priest, draped in linen as white as bone, clutched the amulet of Osiris at his chest and whispered hurried incantations. His voice cracked with fear, but he would not be silenced. "Seal it again, my king," he urged. "This chamber is no place for mortals. The gods will punish Egypt if we pry further." Khufu did not turn to him. His gaze fixed on the immense stone box at the center of the hall. Its surface shimmered faintly, as though absorbing every flicker of torchlight, swallowing it whole. The pharaoh raised his hand, and the murmurs died. "We have not built this pyramid in vain," he said, his voice steady, yet edged with tension. "We have brought stone from Aswan, hauled by tens of thousands. We have shaped every block to the heavens' measure. And yet, here lies a work not ours, older than Egypt, older than kings. Shall I, Khufu, turn from it in fear?" The guards shifted uneasily, though none spoke. Neferu's own breath came shallow, his heart torn between awe and dread. He wanted to record every word, every gesture, yet his hand trembled so fiercely he could scarcely hold the reed pen. The chief architect, his broad shoulders bowed under years of labor, stepped forward. "My pharaoh," he said cautiously, "if this is knowledge, then it must be preserved. But if it is death, then it will claim us all." Khufu's gaze narrowed. "And yet knowledge and death are ever intertwined. We proceed." The workers were ordered to approach the stone box. With ropes and levers, they strained, their muscles taut, sweat streaming despite the coolness of the chamber. The lid groaned, shifting slowly, inch by inch, until a gap yawned wide enough to release a breath of air so ancient it seemed to carry the dust of eternity itself. Neferu gagged at the scent, dry, metallic, bitter like ash, but he forced himself to steady his hand in record. The symbols carved along the walls seemed to shimmer in the torchlight, their patterns shifting subtly, as if alive. When at last the lid slid free, it landed with a thunderous echo that rolled across the chamber like distant thunder. The box stood open. All torches seemed to dim at once, and the low hum grew louder, vibrating through the stone and into their bones. Inside lay not a body, nor a treasure, but a slab of black stone, smoother than obsidian, carved with the same foreign symbols Neferu had studied. Across its surface, lines intertwined like rivers flowing toward a single point in the center. That point glowed faintly, no larger than the flame of a candle, yet brighter than any fire could hope to be. The priest collapsed to his knees. "Close it! Seal it forever! This is no gift of the gods, it is their curse." But Khufu stepped forward. His shadow stretched long across the chamber, and he reached out his hand toward the glowing stone. "Do not touch it, my king," the architect cried. "We do not know its power." Khufu's fingers hovered inches above the stone, and in that moment, Neferu saw the pharaoh hesitate, not in fear, but in recognition, as if some part of him already understood. Then, with a sharp breath, Khufu pressed his palm to the glowing center. The chamber erupted in light. Not fire, not flame, but a searing radiance that spilled across every wall, filling the space with the brilliance of a sun rising beneath the earth. The symbols carved into the walls ignited, each one blazing as though lit from within, their alignments forming constellations Neferu had only glimpsed in the night sky. The workers screamed, dropping their torches. Some fled toward the passage, while others shielded their eyes. Neferu himself stumbled back, his heart hammering, yet some force rooted him in place. He could not look away. The high priest shrieked, his prayers rising to a frantic wail. "The gods abandon us. You have broken the veil." Yet Khufu did not falter. His hand remained upon the stone, and his face was illuminated not with terror but with something deeper, resolve, or perhaps revelation. Neferu's vision blurred as the light grew unbearable, but within its brilliance, he saw shapes forming, vast pillars stretching into infinity, rivers of stars flowing like the Nile across the heavens, and shadows moving among them, ancient and unyielding. And then, as suddenly as it began, the light receded. The chamber fell into silence. The torches burned low, their flames pale and trembling. The black stone still glowed faintly under Khufu's hand, though now the glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. His skin appeared paler, his breath heavy, yet he stood upright, his eyes distant, as though gazing into a world beyond sight. Neferu's hands shook violently, ink splattering across the papyrus. He forced himself to look around. The architect's face was ashen, the guards pale and trembling. The high priest lay on the floor, his chest rising in ragged gasps, the amulet of Osiris cracked down the center. "What have you done?" the priest croaked, his voice hoarse. "You have doomed us all." Khufu turned slowly, his gaze sweeping the chamber. His eyes, once dark and commanding, now shimmered faintly with a light that was not of this world. When he spoke, his voice carried a resonance that sent shivers down Neferu's spine. "I have seen," the pharaoh said simply. "I have seen what no man was meant to see." The silence that followed weighed heavier than stone. In the days that followed, the pyramid site became a place of dread. Workers whispered of curses, of visions in the night. Some claimed to hear the hum of the chamber even from the desert sands, as if the stone itself now breathed. Many fled, abandoning their posts. Neferu remained, though sleep deserted him. His dreams were filled with images he could not name, vast cities of shining stone, stars arranged in impossible patterns, rivers of fire flowing across endless plains. Each morning, he awoke with a pounding in his chest, his hands itching to write, to capture the visions before they faded. The pharaoh had withdrawn from the people. He spent hours within the chamber, alone but for the hum of the black stone. None dared enter without his command. Even the high priest, his amulet shattered, refused to step beyond the threshold. The architect visited Neferu one night, his face hollow with exhaustion. "You write everything, don't you? Every word, every symbol, every whisper?" Neferu nodded, though his voice failed him. "Then listen well," the architect said. "This is not the work of gods or men. It is older. I have studied stones all my life, and these walls, these marks, are not carved by hands we know. They are precise beyond measure, sharper than any chisel. Whoever made this, they built for eternity." His voice dropped, trembling. "And eternity does not welcome us." A week later, Pharaoh Khufu summoned Neferu to the chamber. The boy entered, his reed pen and papyrus clutched tight, though his stomach turned with dread. The chamber was dim, the black stone glowing faintly, casting soft pulses of light across the pharaoh's face. Khufu sat upon a stone seat carved hastily from the chamber floor, his shoulders slumped but his gaze fierce. "You have seen the visions, haven't you, scribe?" the pharaoh asked quietly. Neferu hesitated, but then nodded. Khufu's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. "Good. Then you know. This is not a tomb, Neferu. This pyramid is no resting place for my body. It is something greater." The boy's voice quavered. "What is it, my king?" Khufu's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. "A key," he whispered. "A key to what lies beyond the stars." Those words hung heavy in the chamber, heavier than the stones that encased them. Neferu's breath caught, his mind racing with questions, but the pharaoh lifted a hand to silence him. "You will write all of this, every word," Khufu commanded. "But not for the priests, nor for the architects. This is for those who will come after. For those who will continue the work when I am gone." Neferu bowed his head, though his chest ached with fear. He could not escape the feeling that they were no longer merely building a pyramid, but awakening something that had waited silently for millennia. Something vast. Something patient. And something that, perhaps, was beginning to stir. The desert air outside the pyramid had grown restless. Days of whispers spread through the workers' camp, through the priests' quarters, and out into the villages along the Nile. Families abandoned their homes, fearful of the hum said to rise from the pyramid at night. Some swore they saw its limestone casing shimmer under the moon, as though it drank the light of the stars. Egypt was uneasy, as if its very soul trembled. Inside, Neferu remained bound to his duty. Each day, he entered the hidden chamber, papyrus in hand, to record the pharaoh's words and the strange visions that spilled from the black stone. His heart, once full of youthful certainty, now wrestled with a weight too heavy for one scribe. What he wrote would echo far beyond him, perhaps into centuries yet unborn. Pharaoh Khufu had changed. His once imposing frame thinned, his face drawn, but his eyes glowed with a fervor that frightened even his most loyal guards. He spoke less of Egypt's affairs, less of harvests, taxes, or borders, and more of what he called the path beyond. "It is not a tomb," he repeated to Neferu, voice quiet yet charged. "It is a vessel. A door. The stone sings to me, boy. It reveals what awaits beyond the veil of stars. And I, Khufu, son of Ra, will cross it." The high priest dared no longer enter the chamber, though his protests thundered through the halls of the palace. "The pharaoh has abandoned Ma'at. He toys with powers beyond gods and men. Egypt will fall if he continues." His cries stirred anger among priests and fear among the people. Yet Khufu would not yield. One evening, Neferu was summoned to the inner chamber once more. The black stone pulsed faintly in the dark, its glow in rhythm with the pharaoh's breath. "You have seen the visions as I have," Khufu said. "Cities not built by our hands, rivers of light across the heavens, shapes vast as mountains moving in silence. This is not myth, not dream. It is truth. And I will step into it." Neferu's voice trembled. "But, my king, what if the gods forbid it? What if the price is Egypt itself?" Khufu's gaze softened, for the first time touched by sorrow. "Every king leaves a legacy, Neferu. Some build temples. Some carve laws in stone. I have built a pyramid that will endure when sand has swallowed all else. but it is not for my bones to rest in. It is for the path. If Egypt must tremble so that eternity may open, then so be it. The boy's heart ached. He had admired the pharaoh, feared him, served him. Yet now, he saw a man torn between greatness and doom. He wondered whether he was watching history's triumph or its undoing. The final night came with a storm unlike any Neferu had seen. The desert sky split with lightning, thunder rolling like the march of armies. Winds swept sand against the limestone walls until the air burned to breathe. But within the pyramid, the chamber pulsed with calm, its glow stronger than ever. Khufu entered draped not in gold, but in plain linen, as though death already touched him. He dismissed all but Neferu, the chief architect, and 2 guards. The high priest remained outside, shouting curses that the storm carried away. The pharaoh placed his hands upon the stone once more. The glow surged, flooding the chamber with white fire. The walls blazed with constellations, every symbol alive, the ceiling opening in visions of the heavens. Neferu fell to his knees, his eyes blinded by tears of brilliance. "I see it," Khufu whispered, his voice trembling with awe. "The path. It waits for me." The architect clutched his chest, his face pale with terror. "My king, this power is not ours. You cannot." But Khufu turned, his eyes radiant with unearthly light. "It is mine, for I have dared. And it will be written that Khufu opened what no king dared to touch." He pressed his palms flat upon the glowing slab. The hum rose, shaking the chamber, rattling stone as if the pyramid itself groaned. Light burst upward, a column piercing through the roof, through stone and sky, a beacon stabbing into the storm. Outside, villagers fell to their knees, priests screamed, and workers fled into the desert. Within, Neferu watched as Khufu's body stiffened, his breath shallow, his voice breaking into a cry both human and divine. For a moment, the boy thought the pharaoh would burn, consumed by the brilliance. But then, silence. The glow dimmed, the hum faded. The black stone darkened, its light spent. And Khufu was gone. Only his linen wrappings remained, empty upon the stone seat. Neferu's chest heaved, his reed pen slipping from his trembling fingers. The guards whispered prayers in terror, refusing to move closer. The architect covered his face with both hands, muttering, "No king should see eternity." Yet Neferu, through the pounding of his heart, felt something else, a weight of awe, of sorrow, of destiny. The pharaoh had vanished, not in death, but in passage. Whether he had crossed into the realm of the gods or into some truth beyond stars, Neferu could not say. The high priest stormed into the chamber moments later, his face twisted with horror. When he saw the empty wrappings, he wailed, tearing his linen. "He has undone us. Egypt is cursed." But Neferu, wiping the tears from his cheeks, whispered softly to himself, "He has crossed." In the weeks that followed, the pyramid was sealed. The workers, restless with fear, fled. Priests declared it forbidden, a tomb not of body but of blasphemy. Rumors spread across Egypt, some said the pharaoh had ascended as a god, others that he had been devoured by darkness. The truth remained locked in stone. Neferu returned to his village for a time, his mother embracing him with relief, though his eyes carried shadows she could not understand. At night, he still dreamed of constellations blazing upon walls, of rivers of light flowing through the heavens. He wrote them by lamplight, filling papyrus with marks that even he scarcely understood. Years passed. Egypt endured, as Egypt always did. New kings rose, temples were built, wars fought, and the Nile flooded again and again. The Great Pyramid stood silent against the horizon, its secrets hidden within. But Neferu's writings endured as well. He guarded them with care, recording not only the pharaoh's words but his own fears, his own awe. He wrote of the chamber, of the stone, of the final night when light pierced the storm. He did not know whether Khufu had saved Egypt or doomed it, only that he had dared to touch eternity. And so the Great Pyramid remained, not just a tomb, not just a monument, but a riddle carved in stone. To some, it was a king's pride. To others, a curse. But to Neferu, and to those few who glimpsed his writings, It was something greater still, a reminder that mankind has always sought to reach beyond, to pierce the veil of stars, even at the risk of all it holds dear. Centuries would pass, dynasties rise and fall, sands bury and uncover. Yet the pyramid would endure, as would its silence. And in that silence lay the question Khufu had left behind: did he find the path he sought, or had he simply vanished into the void? The answer would never be written in stone. It would live only in whispers, in the dreams of those who looked to the pyramids and wondered what secrets still pulsed in their heart of stone. Thus ended the tale of Neferu's witness, and of the pharaoh who dared to open the chamber. A story not of conquest or treasure, but of one man's reach for eternity, and the silence he left behind. The desert kept its secrets. The pyramid endured. And Egypt walked on, beneath the eternal sky.